All right, good morning, everybody. You've got the Air Down Podcast live from the ASB Financial Studios and Fly on the Wall Productions right here in beautiful Barre, Vermont. On Main Street is where our studios are. Hope you're off to a great start. We are hovering right now around, well, just below 60 degrees, and I think it is supposed to be just a delightful next couple of days here. Mr. PAPPAS, very good morning to you, and I'm so glad that you're here.
I am also hovering at the moment.
You're hovering?
Yeah.
Around 58 degrees?
No, I feel like I'm hovering at maybe a different temperature than everybody else.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely enjoying the hover.
Are you up about 30,000 feet looking down?
Rough day to be looking down.
Mm-hmm.
There are news days, and then there are news days with a capital N and a capital D. Yesterday was one of those news days.
Yes, it was.
And it was interesting before we kind of talk about the issues at hand. Excuse me. See, that's what happens when you hover for too long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You get things trapped in your mouth,
of course,
in your throat. We've taken a bit of heat already this morning for not having the mass shooting in Texas on the front page. But as you and I have discussed on the podcast before, we have earlier deadlines now than we have in the past because we're printing in Quebec. And earlier in the week, by the way, there were tornadoes in Quebec which took out the power. So they've been on backup systems, which have kind of affected them to a certain degree. Hasn't really affected us directly, but one of the interesting things that came out of last night was that it's pretty unusual for us to change gears midstream, and you have to pivot to the news, especially with breaking stories of that magnitude. So while the story does appear in the paper and is teased off the front page, it is not on the front page. And we've had a number of people reach out and say that that's, disgrace. And, and it's on our website, and it's...
it is? It is on your website.
Yeah. I mean, AP Wire feed is always on our website.
That's right.
And that is updating constantly.
Uh-huh.
So... you can go to the Times Argus website at timesargus.com at any time to see national and international news. People are generally not picking up the Times Argus for that, because that news you can get on the 24-hour news cycle.
Sure.
They tend to turn to us for local news, but there are certain days where it just, if we had a little more time, it certainly would have been on the front page.
Yeah. It's the nature of the print business, really.
Yeah, I mean, you get to a certain point where
you have to shut the door.
Yeah, you have to cut your losses
because go to the printer.
Yeah, because every time you're late, you're getting charged. It's a domino effect. So if you're late, then you're paying for somebody's overtime down the road.
And then people are pissed off because they don't have their newspapers on time.
On time, right.
So huge domino effect. So being on deadline is being on deadline. In the print biz, you have to close the door. You have to go to the printer and manage your more time sensitive social media.
Yep. Look at this! I'm already. Somebody must be tuned in.
What'd you get?
Oh, I got a nice little
love note.
Yeah, a little love jab.
Oh.
I'm going to just turn my phone over so I don't see those.
Oh no. Read that. Give it to me. I'll read it.
No, it's okay. We're
Come
good.
On.
No, we're good.
What if I jump over across the table here and wrestle that phone away from you?
No, it's fine. It's it happens. But so let's talk about what happened.
Yeah.
So there was a mass shooting in Texas at an elementary school. I don't think there's anybody on the planet who doesn't know that at this point.
Unbelievably tragic. I have so much to say about this. Well, in some ways, I have a lot to say. In other ways, maybe not so much. But we found out about this late. This was something that happened 10:30 a.m., I think, Texas time, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Was it 10:30 or was it? I think it was a little bit later than that.
It all started
to. The news cycle started to unfold pretty rapidly after 3.
Yes.
So
It was. I was going to say it was mid to late afternoon.
yeah,
And
it kind of felt unbelievable at the time because it didn't seem like it was. Usually these things kind of go through where we are being made aware of an active shooter situation. In this case, it was over.
Yeah,
it was we have a horrific situation.
Mm-hmm. Raylene found out about it right away, being the news hound that she is, and had it aired out almost immediately.
Yep.
But go ahead.
All right. So, I mean, there are a handful of things that we can talk about here. I don't want to go into gun control. I don't want to go into the obvious politicization. Politics.
The politicization.
Yeah, that one. What I said. The existential problem that we have in this country is that we do not know how to essentially take care of people with mental health issues. And, there's a lot to be said about the mental health crisis in this nation. Thank you, Raylene.
You're welcome.
Raylene bringing us coffee. That's it. Like probably one of the top, maybe 3 biggest understatements I think I have heard in a long time. What you just said.
You can point to a lot of different things about the causes and effects and of all of this, but normal people don't kill, right? Mm-hmm. People who are sick in the head kill. And so there last night felt like I don't blame people for wanting to just tune out and turn it off. But at a certain point, we've got to start dealing with the issues facing this country so that this stops happening. And, there were people saying, oh, you can't, this doesn't happen in other countries. That's because we don't hear about them. Of course we do. Of course we do. We hear about them. We just don't want to acknowledge the ugliness that is the United States of America and how we cannot get control of this situation. And I don't care who you are. I don't care if you want to come down here and put a gun in my face and say, you're not going to take my gun away. You're right, dude. I don't want to take your gun away. Uh-huh. Notice I said dude. Uh-huh. Dude, because, again, a white man committed this crime. Uh-huh. We're in a situation right now where the problem... we don't need necessarily a government or a political solution to this. We need a services solution to this. And part of that may be more regulation on certain things, but we need to be throwing money at the right things. And we're not. And that's why we keep, in my mind, that's why we keep having these problems. It's not, I heard some idiot this morning on the radio say that when things like this happen, it's actually a really good thing for gun manufacturers. Are you kidding me? How can you say that? How in your right mind could you say something that stupid, that killing children?
Who the fuck said that?
Some asshat on the radio.
What radio?
I don't know. It was Sirius.
Oh my God.
Yeah. You can't say things like that. You can't.
Even if there's some truth to that,
there's no.
Not
there can't be.
Steve, I'm saying if there was, just it's not the time.
Well,
say shit like that.
But JD, did you watch any of the coverage last night?
I have an answer to that.
Well, let me before, and I bet it's a logical answer and one that takes compassion for your child into consideration, which I appreciate. So I appreciate you for that. If it's that you were busy playing Pokemon, then maybe we've got some other issues we need to talk about. But the things that were being said within just a few hours were unbelievable. It was unbelievable. You know, this country is in an existential crisis over mental health issues, gun issues, you name it. We have big problems in this country.
Washington County Mental Health is a new presenting sponsor of the Air It Out podcast. And
that's excellent. Congratulations.
Thank you. And for damn good reason, frankly, because there is so much that we need to discuss about, the month of May. It's 25 days in. This is Mental Health Awareness Month. And look what's happening. We just had a shooting at a grocery store in Buffalo. Now this event in Texas. Listen, mental health was an issue way before COVID was created. And
yeah,
it's going to be now, the residual of COVID is going to be long-lasting, pal.
The people who, and I think you and I have talked about this a little bit, we've had a couple of stories over the last few months about how the people who have been helping people burned out because there was so much.
Sure.
The demand was so high for them when people got locked down in their homes and they got scared and people were dying and all of that.
And it's not just the elderly.
Of course not.
It's everybody.
Yeah.
No,
it was the demand for therapists and for counselors was off the charts. And now there are huge gaps in. You could drive your motorcycle through these gaps.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah,
and we need to be giving more. And we've been saying this all along. We need, especially in Vermont, I feel like we need more emphasis and more money going to mental health services.
Yeah,
for sure.
Last night, I was driving home. I had a long drive. I was in the car for a long time. And, this was unfolding. And I always have my phone plugged into my audio in my car. And I listen to various things, podcasts and whatnot, and breaking news and whatnot. And just as this was unfolding, I knew the basic facts, which at the point were, I think, 14 children and one adult, one teacher, on the early side of this story, and the pinging on my phone of different news agencies and networks that were just unfolding this breaking news was all over my phone. Was flooded with it, as everyone's is. And there were two. I almost think of them as bubbles that are both inflating and maybe inflating at different rates. There's the bubble of the tragedy and the facts of what happened, and the lives lost, and just the tragedy of the story. And then there's the other bubble, which is all the political side. What's happening there, and the bee's nest that's been hit again, and that bubble that's inflating, and they're both inflating at the same time. Sometimes one's getting a little bigger than the other, and one's inflating faster than the other. But they were both coming at the same time, and it was all over my phone, and the battery of my phone died. And my phone,
blessedly,
that's part of my point. I didn't have and of course I was frustrated because I wanted to be caught up with what's going on. So I pulled over and I'm looking for a charger in my car. Of course there's no charger. So I had no way to charge my phone. And
darn that Cheryl.
Well, I had my own little pissy fit, but I was out of control of the situation. I just had to drive home with no use of my phone. So, of course, I'm going to be in the car for like an hour and a half. Of course, I go to the radio. Nothing on the radio anywhere. Couldn't hear anything anywhere. I mean, I was surfing all over AM, FM, everywhere. Nothing. And after about 20 minutes of that, I just shut the radio off, and I had silence. And I felt like there was almost like someone that was sending me a message of, this is not the time to hear all of the details of how this tragedy unfolded, and who did it, and how old he was, and what happened, and how he, how he got into the school and everything. And it's not the time to be listening about gun control and politics and what Biden is saying and who's saying what and all the reaction of all these different senators all over the country. The time right now is to just be quiet and to imagine what these sets of 14 parents are going through, and how just yesterday, JD, you were playing baseball with your little girl. Just yesterday. Not a care in the world. Nothing would ever have crossed your mind yesterday when you were playing baseball with Lily that a day later you would have lost her. And that in my drive home, that all of the shit that you're dealing with and that is occupying your mind and renting space, all of it doesn't amount to shit. None of it does.
Right. No, I agree.
That's what I had for the whole ride home.
That is
total silence.
That is a blessing in disguise. So the papers got out the door, and my partner came over, and we were having a conversation, and the dog got sprayed by a skunk. Well, that consumes your evening right there, right?
No question.
But again, I think it was a sign. It was a don't sit and fester and get sucked into this even more. And I will tell you that the one thing I did do, and every parent should do, is I reached out to my kids and just said, I love you.
That's it.
And my kids are all grown up. I don't have any little kids. I don't. All my Lilies
doesn't matter.
Are big people now, and
doesn't matter.
And so I made sure that I reached out to all of my kids to make sure that they knew that on a hard news day like that, I love them.
And yet we can get so easily distracted with the less important things. What you just said is the most important thing. The less important things is, how are we going to solve this problem, and how are we going to prevent this from ever happening again, and this and that, and we can talk about that shit forever. We can go down that rabbit hole and hang out there for months. We have in the past.
Right. So what's the
solution?
What's the solution? What's the tipping point? And at some point we have to draw a line.
I don't think anybody's got the right answer to this. I mean, it's...
Well, part of the answer is everyone needs to shut up and listen to each other and have a real conversation, instead of, you're not going to do this, you are going to do this.
Right.
Shut up.
Right.
If that's your position, you don't get to speak anymore. You get to shut up and go sit in the corner.
Yeah.
And let the grown-ups have a conversation about how we're going to fix this.
Right. We also need to just shut up and listen to each other.
Yeah. Fundamentally, we just need to shut up and listen to each other. And I've had people be like, you can't say that, do you have a death wish? No, I do not have a death wish. I have a dialogue wish, is what I have. I have a,
dialogue, yeah. Yeah, no, that's it. That's right. That's what we need.
That's what we need. And, these guys spend all this time raising all this money to go to Congress to sit there and do what? Do something. At this point, don't posture.
Yeah.
The posturing, it might be good for your midterm election scorecard, but who cares?
Yeah.
For those 14 families,
Yeah.
who cares?
Sherilyn. She's from England. We talk about Parliament and the big fights and the throwing staplers and screaming at each other.
The fine honorable gentleman from West Topsom.
Yes, but you know what she says is like over there, across the pond. Basically, she says we get shit done. We don't sit around flapping our gums and whose feelings are hurt and whose are not. We say it like it is, and we get shit done.
I mean, some people could argue that the experiment of democracy in this country is not working anymore. Surprise! Maybe.
What was your editorial about?
So it was not about that, because I had written my editorial much earlier in the day.
Yeah.
But I was looking at kind of where we are going into the holiday weekend and what we're going to be talking about, and how there are all these things that we can be talking about and should be talking about and probably won't be talking about because we're going to be talking. I was making a little bit of fun about Obi-Wan Kenobi and Top Gun Maverick, and
Top Gun's big, bud.
No, I know. You don't need to tell me.
Don't be making fun of Top Gun. Don't go there.
Well, save it for the weekend.
Okay, I will.
For the gatherings. But it's a dissection of a poll that has come out talking about essentially misplaced priorities. And up until 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon, when I wrote the editorial, the priorities were: should we be giving all this money to Ukraine, for another $40 billion, or should we be trying to solve the price gouging on fuel, the inflation, all of the things that are kind of dominating our lives, our wallets, our bank accounts. And so it was a dissection of this AP poll that had come out, and it took a look back at, over the last 3 months, kind of how as a nation we get caught up in the, oh, it's so terrible, we need to do these things, oh, we can't afford this, oh, don't do that anymore, I need my money back, kind of a thing. And that we get caught up in fads that kind of, as news unfolds, we find it entertaining.
Yes. And
we don't actually have great responses or real solutions for some of these issues.
And inherently, we're reactionary.
We are far too reactionary. And so my editorial was a little bit poking fun at the fact that our priorities are a little misplaced. And yeah, with a tip of the hat to Obi-Wan and Maverick.
See, now what you've done is you've sparked my curiosity. And I'm not just saying this because we're on the air, but now you've got my curiosity going where I need to read this.
No, I've actually never flown a jet or used a lightsaber.
Do you have your Tom Cruise sunglasses ready to go? It's coming out tomorrow. You do realize that nationally, PAPPAS.
When it came out originally, it was iconic, and now people are saying it's better than the first one.
I think you would look really good with some Tom Cruise shades, by the way. Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
A friend of mine who is a year older than I am is so excited that he referred to it as, I'm having a nerdgasm, because he was like, I can't believe that I'm a teenager again,
Yeah.
and I'm so excited to go to see this movie.
Is your friend Damien Hardacre?
I don't know who that is.
Because
No.
DJ Hardacre is like he's going to like blow a vessel over this thing. I mean, he's just like, he's having a hard time sleeping at night.
I have had a handful of people who are not moviegoers, like go into the theater,
Yes.
and they're like, I actually might have to go see this. And I read a really interesting article the other day that said that this movie by itself as a blockbuster, as a summer blockbuster, may actually get adults to go back to movie theaters. That they've kind of stepped away from it, and they're
That's
going and they're going. They stream everything. They just sit at
That's
home
right.
with their, in the comfort of their homes,
In their underwear.
and they don't really have that experience. And that movie theaters have very much become a vehicle for young people and for young families.
Yes.
But not the broader audience of what
Sure.
it used to be. But there are like indie films, and there are all these things. But again, they can be streamed.
Yes.
Right? Tom Cruise said, no way this thing's going to stream. I want butts in seats.
Good for Tom.
Yeah. And
And a few others, I'm sure, that helped make that decision. But we've been just chatting recently with Richard Bashara and the team at the Paramount and the Capitol Plaza. And FGB Theaters is a sponsor of ours. Top Gun is going to be at the Paramount. 5:30 is when we're going to be probably hanging out over there.
it's not Top Gun. It's Top Gun Maverick.
Thank you.
Top Gun was the original.
Thank you. But listen, people are going to be waiting in line for this thing. We urge you.
Are you nervous about going into a movie theater?
Not at all.
Okay. So let's pivot a little bit and talk about the fact that there has been a lot of illness lately, and some of it's been COVID related.
Yes,
The numbers are pretty high.
they are.
But there has been, and I don't know if everybody, it's not like a newsworthy thing, but we've talked to a number of healthcare providers in the state who say that there has been a flu and cold strain going through Vermont that it's causing bronchitis and pneumonia in some cases. And it's not COVID related, but it's one of the worst head colds and flu strains that they've seen in a very long time. And that is actually taking up a fair amount of time in some of the local health centers and clinics, urgent care clinics. And that these colds, these head colds, they're lasting weeks. They're not lasting days. They're lasting weeks. And now there's this question about, well, does it have something to do with changes in our immunity because of the last 2 years? Does it have anything to do with the fact that, we haven't been spreading as many germs as maybe we have in the past?
Interesting.
I guess schools, again, remember a few months ago when I was on and we were talking about how schools were getting, kids were in, kids were out, because of, well, now kids are just out because they're sick.
Yeah.
They've got these colds.
And look at Barre City Elementary School.
Yeah.
They have how many staff members that were
It was a lot. I mean,
not there?
Yeah, Dave had a story about it last week, and plus, there's so many people retiring and stepping away from teaching in a lot of our school districts. That's going to be a problem too. But yeah,
road commissioner in Plainfield. What the hell's that all about? What's going on?
Boy, that's ugly. We have been fighting a behind-the-scenes battle with a few residents. There are folks who are on the select board in Plainfield is going to choose a new road commissioner.
Okay.
A longtime road commissioner is finally retiring. And Mike Nolan, who has been there decades. I mean, I think he worked there. I think he worked there as a young person and became the road commissioner. Has finally decided to step down. Plainfield doesn't have a big road crew, right? But it's important because more than half of the roads are dirt. and the select board needs to make a decision. The person who's been kind of handpicked as the up and coming person on the road crew to be the new foreman is not being considered. And the former road commissioner, Bram Tobin, I don't know if you know Bram, but he's a very vocal guy, and a handful of people in the community are like, well, what's going on? Well, it turns out that small town politics is playing a big role in this decision, and that they may have actually offered the job to somebody from another town who's given notice in their town and are bringing people from their town to Plainfield. So another town is going to be potentially deficient in their road crew, and people in and that's only phase one. Phase two is that the select board does not want to have a public discussion about it. They want to do it in executive session, and you can't do that. You cannot have a discussion about the road crew and the road foreman behind closed doors and the meeting is tonight. And the first thing on the agenda is an executive session for 1 hour. And the townspeople are trying to get the agenda changed, and they're trying to, because they want to have an open discussion about why we're poaching somebody when we have perfectly good, qualified people who are well respected and being, have been groomed for years in town. And it comes down to
Big Boys Club?
Yeah. It actually comes, it appears that this fight goes back generations. Go figure, in small town America, small town Vermont, especially with the road crew. But yeah, it will be interesting. It's a tempest in a teapot, as they say. But it is kind of the quintessential, and I probably will be editorializing about it once I know what the outcome is, about how dysfunctional small towns really can be, and that they don't care about process. They don't care about, they care about agendas and they care about grudges, but they don't care about process, and they don't care about the right decisions for the community overall. And this is a grudge match. What are we up to? Battle of Barre what? 7?
It was just number 7.
7. So this is going to be the what could we call it? The Poop Fest in Plainfield 1. We'll see.
Speaking of politics and how murky certain folks can make it, by throwing shit into the stream so that our vision is blurred. Had to take a big breath there. The Barre Auditorium, June 1st, is the 13th, I think, Central Vermont Economic Development Corps job fair, which is going to be massive.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of folks there.
This past Saturday night at the Barre Auditorium for the Battle in Barre 7, where I was the ring announcer, and the temperature of the inside of that Barre Auditorium was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. I lost, look how good I look. I lost 50 pounds, bud, in one night. The forecast I've just heard for June 1st for this job fair, 92 degrees. We need air conditioning in the Barre Auditorium, Steve, if we're going to bring people to this community and have events during the summer months at the Barre Auditorium.
There are other people in this community who argue that perhaps that facility has run its course and that we should have a different facility for basketball tournaments, events, things of that nature. I'm not going to say that that's the direction that we should go, but there are people in this community who feel like there should be a different facility up there.
You're right, and there's other folks that just want nothing changed up there, and they want to put that grant money that could be used for improvements up at the auditorium, air conditioning and whatnot, could be used elsewhere, bike path, whatever it may be. I'm closing my folder. We're done.
Bangor, Maine. Is one of the places where state tournaments are played for basketball in the state of Maine.
Yep.
And it's a huge draw. The Bangor Auditorium, when I was in college, it was a piece of garbage, and nobody actually wanted to go to that to that facility to watch basketball because it was so uncomfortable, and it was hot, and it was nasty, and it was old.
Sure.
They made the decision to tear it down and build a state-of-the-art facility, concessions, restrooms. You know, it was a real event.
Handicapped, accessible, all that stuff, yeah.
And what, you wouldn't believe it, JD, it's got hotels all around it now. And all of a sudden, Bangor, Maine has become a destination for events. Their waterfront is thriving. Fish is playing at the Bangor waterfront. Go ahead, read your thing.
Say no more.
I won't.
That's a great point right there. Thanks for coming on, Steve Pappas.
Always good to be here.
Chief Bottle Washer over at the Times Argus.
BB Stacker.